Thanks for staying with us. As the President, Bola Tinubu's administration marks its mid-term milestones, it's essential to evaluate the progress and impact. This assessment provides an opportunity to reflect on the administration's achievements and challenges. With a diverse range of priorities, the administration has faced numerous tests from economic reforms to security challenges. Administration's response has been closely watched. This evaluation would examine the administrative performance sector across different sectors. The key focus includes economic growth. We want to check out infrastructural development as well as social welfare. We also want to overlook the administration's commitment to transparency and accountability. We'll be assessing that as well. Additionally, the impact of policies on the average Nigerian will be considered. This midterm assessment is to provide a comprehensive overview of the administration's progress. So to join us in the studio to delve into our midterm assessment of the president is the Special Advisor to the President on Policy Communication, Honorable Daniel Bwala. So, happy second anniversary to this administration.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. This is a conversation that is extremely important. They say when something faces the front to one person, it is the back to another person.
Correct.
But it's important to have someone who can give us a 360 view of what is going on. You can join the conversation because we would like to, I'm sure you would have questions for him. I would like to hear from you. Call us on 020-163-52013, or you can call us on 090-2416-3440. Tweet to us live on x.com, #YourFieldTVC, so we can hear from you. We're also streaming on YouTube right now. First question that many people would have on their mind is that what has worked really?
In the government, right?
Yes, there's the, because everybody's looking at the economic impact on their account.
Right.
And the question is, what exactly has worked?
Right.
What has worked concerning economy specifically, because that is what is affecting everybody most, the account balance, dollar, all of that. Can you help us analyze what exactly you feel in this administration factually has worked? So
thank you for having me, and it's nice being in your program this morning. A lot of factors are involved, but from the side of the federal government, I would readily say the first thing that has happened is that we have been able to drive this idea of increased revenue to the states of the federation, because the component called Nigeria consists of the states and then the federal government. And of course, the people who are directly impacted by either positive or negative policy of the government are in their in our locality, in the local government, in the states. They are where you have the real Nigeria, whether you are talking of the impact of security or economy. So what has happened is that the president took a decision that now provided, to a large extent, enormous resources at the local level where the people can be impacted. So what we are doing is federal government is collaborating with the states to ensure that the same deliverables that we see from the federal government is directly translated into the daily lives of the people at the local level. For example, people who are battling with maybe childbirth, medical conditions at the local level. We are hoping that governors will be able to trickle down, in this case, local government administrators, because we have brought up, local government chairman, because we have local government autonomy, where you have dispensaries, the local hospitals to take care of this. The insecurity situation we find in different parts of the country, what has happened is that resources are now deployed to the state and then to the local government, so that the critical cause of the problem, insecurity, lack of jobs, problem relating to the economic affairs of the common man at the local level will now be dealt with. And this is our belief, that when you take the resource, because everybody can't come to Abuja, people who work in government at the federal level are very few. The Nigerian people are in the local level. And so that's what the president has done, and we believe that resources are deployed to those states. I think the conversation should also be about what are the governors also doing with the resources in the state to ensure that it is trickled down. At the general level, Nigerian economy, when we came, was in what, if you like, you can call it intensive care unit. The president took it to the surgery room, performed a successful surgery. This is what the economists will tell you, by dealing with the fundamentals of the economy. In fact, World Bank came only 2 weeks ago, and they said that the administration of the president placed the economy in a modest growth. So the economy at the moment has been moved away from the intensive care unit to the recovery room, otherwise the medical people will call it convalescent stage, where the economy is now beginning to recover so that we can have the full-fledged of the impact of the economy on the general life of the Nigerian people. This is one of the many, but this is fundamentally what has happened.
Okay, let me take it from the poverty alleviation side of things, because I remember that we complained about, the poverty index increasing under President Buhari, and then they came in as a party and had a plan on how they would alleviate poverty, and the impact of that cannot really be seen. So how impactful, this surgery, these laudable plans that you just mentioned, have you been able to access the impact of it? How many lives have changed? How has it impacted?
So, for example, if we look at education, we can say at the moment, even though we all know that when you're carrying out a reform, you have to give it a time. But then we also believe that there are things you can point at in the immediate. And this is what we can say today we have been able to, steer. One is that we can tell that over 300,000 Nigerians who are going to the universities have benefited from the government funding where they can fund their education. Direct cost of fees and then cost of living. And we're hoping that in the coming day we expand that, right? We will even expand beyond the government schools into private schools as well. With respect to probably poverty, we know that we've introduced rice policy that is affecting the entire states of the federation. So we're also hoping that the judicious use of this policy of the government will be administered by the state governors, and then you trickle down to the people at the local level. Job creation fundamentally is a product of a lot of factors. But the one factor that we will all have to agree is that you have to allow the economy to be stimulated. So what is government effort? What is the government making or doing to steer that? I know that there are lots of policies of government that provide the platform for private sector to thrive. So whether you look at the small and medium scale policy of government that hopes to give money in the hands of people who create business. So for example, if I access a loan or credit of say 5 million and I decide to set up a business, at onset I'm going to have at least 1 or 2 people under my employment. Either the accountant or somebody who is a salesperson, and somebody I have who will be the admin officer. If you multiply that by the number of people that will benefit from government policy at the onset, and then you look at it progressively, it gives you just in a small scale the impact of that in respect to job creation. The other thing is that if people who are in businesses are able to get incentive from government, whether it be loan, tax holiday, whatever it is, any form of incentive that helps them to thrive, then it gives them the opportunity to recruit more and sustain those ones that are there, or even increase their benefit. If you look at from the foreign direct investment coming to Nigeria, then of course you know that we have hopes that businesses will be generated. And these are the things we are seeing, we are reporting. Those who are fact-checking us, the only thing they can say is they can't deny the fact of the existence of these factors, but anytime they want to contradict that, they will now say it should be faster. Because even when the World Bank came, they are saying that for us to meet with the $1 trillion economy by 2030, then we have to increase the speed of the economic growth. We know for a fact that to have speedy growth of the economy, factors such as infrastructure is put into place. We don't have infrastructure. The government is investing in there. Other factors like power supply, steady power supply. This is where we're working towards. And a lot of other factors, access to credit. These are all the factors you put in place to say, okay, this economy is moving at certain pace, at certain pace. When you don't have that and government is investing in that, don't forget that economists have arrived at a conclusion, intelligently and from the economic standpoint, that for Nigeria to attain a level where Nigeria will be considered like just any other nation that is growing from one state to other, there must be, in the next 30 years, investment of between $30 billion to $100 billion annually only on infrastructure, between 30 to 100 billion for a period of 30 years. The budget is less than $35 billion. The entire budget, whether you add education, security, everything. So when you look at that and you look at what we're doing, those who want to be very, very rational, yes, they will agree that the president has done extremely well in the midterm. This is not 4 years. This is only 2 years for us to be able to achieve that. Even the masses that we talk about crying, if you look at last year, Sometime around this time last year, the situation was much more precarious. Even in your reporting, when you talk about people who are saying, Ebing Power, we're going through this, Nigerians are able to, because all that the people need from government is accountability. If you can convince me that what you're doing is out of a good heart, I can endure for as long as you can convince me until we all come out of it. But we don't even have, in my view, an option. When the president came, there was no revenue. Nigeria was at a very critical stage. That's why we said it was at intensive care unit. I mean, in intensive care unit at that time. But thankfully, the economy is gradually being glided where the people can see the effort of government. And we're hoping this stage we're entering into after 2 years will be that recovery stage. And one good thing that happens in recovery, when a patient is in the recovery room, is that you are going to see the rate of growth, the rate of, a medical term I will use to show the difference between when you are in either the surgery room intensive care unit and when you are recovering. They are certainly not the same.
Okay.
If I look at your faces, the way you were analyzing the economic situation last year is not the same way you're organizing. You're more ease now.
No.
I have been following your programs.
Okay, so yes, so I hear you and I hear everything you're saying. But then we can't forget the fact that within the past 2 years, so many businesses have suffered due to the exchange rate. And you're saying that we are going into the recovery room. Is this exchange rate going to be recovered? Okay, we're already in recovery room. So what's happening with the exchange rate? Because people can't do businesses. So many, even though we're saying that we want to start manufacturing and doing our productions in Nigeria, so many raw materials are still brought from outside the country. So without exchange rate, so many businesses have shut down. So many businesses are struggling. What's going on with that? Can you educate us on because this is the highest we can't deal.
Yeah. So what we do is to boost production, because that's the only way forex can come in. It won't come through fasting and prayers. It will come through praise and worship. You praise and worship to prepare yourself. But after that, you put in works to make sure that our people have access to means of production, but also are able to work. And if you look at our economy, certain things, there was a time the complaint was that foreign companies were folding up and leaving Nigeria, and that's why we're no longer having foreign exchange. But later it is discovered that some of these companies that were leaving is because the president came and said, we'll play by the rules. They were enjoying free tax. There are certain basic principles on ground that they were bypassing, and the government obliged them because, quote unquote, they are foreign organizations in Nigeria. As they go, we don't hear that they even thrive in their countries either. So take, for example, if you look at an oil company that left Nigeria back to its home country, try to do a little research about what they are doing in their country. Because wherever you go, you must compete. That's the whole idea of a free market economy. You must compete. We must not give you advantage over others. Market dominance at the peripheral stage, it will look like it is good. But the downside of it is that you are able to stifle others who can't compete. The environment must be competitive for competition. So if we, as the government is like small and medium scale, is still part of means of production. People who are in the manufacturing, people who are in probably industrialists, if you do a little bit of research, you will see the way they benefit from government. But the forex regime of yesterday, just like the oil regime of yesterday, subsidy, it was not actually benefiting the people, but just a few people. So even the narrative created in the space is that we prefer where we were before than where we are. But what you don't know is for every dollar that Mr. A accesses for a certain amount, there is extra dollar that the federal government subsidized for that. Those dollars that would have been subsidizing for are the things we are now putting into the critical area where everybody will be affected.
Ramatu, I'm going to come to you, but you see, what you just explained is something I've discussed on the show from the angle of the government could not deal with the corruption within and the lack of, and decided to throw it open to everybody, because it's one of the reasons there was corruption in the oil sector. And so rather than dealing with the corruption in the oil sector, the government said free market. There was corruption in the management of forex. The government said, okay, we cannot deal with this corruption. Free it. In freeing these two things, the people had to pay more, were paying more for oil, were paying more for dollar. And those two things I would like to, the IMF, I read IMF's report that the economy is, we're on the right trajectory, but the Nigerian population, the regular average Nigerian, isn't feeling like we are on the right trajectory. For the average Nigerian, they're looking at it and wondering, okay, when are we going to get back to dollar at least 500 or 700? You know, so is there any plan? Is the plan taking us there? And what else is going to give for us to arrive there?
So the plan is already working. If you recall, at some point, a dollar went for as much as 1,800 to 1,900. But over the last 3 to 6 months, at least there is stability in the sense that the oscillation of the money is still within the range of, let's say, 10 naira. Either 160 or 150, 165 or 155. And this is driven by economic indices. And this is a more realistic economic growth than a wonder that somebody will promise you wake up in the next morning, dollar is going for 800. You know it's an artificial growth. One thing about artificial growth is that it is not sustainable and it doesn't last. Then with respect to when are we going to come back to when a dollar will go for, say, 700 or 800, it's possible, but it takes a lot of factors. Like we talk about production, competition in the market as well, because you made the point, in those days, certain people were benefiting, now free the market. You see, the president was once asked in the last media parley, I think somebody saying, when are we going to have, I think it's BKO. He said, because people hold items, so when are we going to have price control? You see, price control is not consistent with free market economy. The president said, no, I will never enforce price control in my government. He said, let there be enough supply and demand, market forces will play, competition. Look at the oil. There was a time a liter of oil was going for a certain amount, then Dangote came on board, other people are now getting enabling environment, the oil is going down. And you can see that most likely, we don't know, but most likely it might come down to as much as 700 or less. But you have to look at two factors: time, ensure that the people play by the rules, and then the third one, encourage people to participate in the economy.
Well, I'm still going to jump at you from another area, but you did not add the CNG.
That's
the impact of CNG is still on the people don't talk about it enough. I use a CNG car, and if I tell you the number of hours I have to queue at some of the stations where we get, a lot of Nigerians are already on that platform. It should have impacted dropping prices
the CNG, right?
For transportation. But
so we need more investors in that field. When you have probably few people, because it's a new initiative, you know, departure from energy to alternative source, more people will come in to play. It's just like when when we introduced GSM to Nigeria, when it was one company, I remember I bought SIM card for 32,000.
40,000.
40,000. Then you have more people coming in, and then at some point they will even give you SIM card free and give you chocolate. They say, I will make you. Once the market, you create the government can only create an enabling environment. In a free market economy, government does not determine. Government just set the rule. The market forces will determine how the economy grows. And we see excitement in that.
I want to announce to our audience that we will be taking a break off TVC News because the Honorable Minister for Education, Dr. Maruf Alausa, is having a press conference on technical and vocational education training, which is already ongoing right now. So if you are watching us on TVC News, you would need to go on to TVC Entertainment on GoTV or join the live stream, which is going on right now on YouTube, to continue the conversation. We'll continue the conversation. I just wanted you to know that we're going off the TV.
You're operating in the spirit now.
Yes, that we're going off a particular station. This platform has been taken off by the Minister of Education.
Yeah, so you made mention of all these praises. You said they're doing extremely well.
Wrong, all these praises. If you have a question with the facts I give, you can counter it. Yes, but it's a fact-based conversation. You are free to counter it. I'm free to give my opinion, and those who are watching it are free to make their own conclusions.
So in the boosting of production, because I'm into production and I know where I have issues. For example, like accessing loans, right, the money and everything. We know that BOI cannot give everybody money, right? So we need to involve other institutions, which are our banks. And we all know that the interest rate from banks is very, very high. So how will an economy grow when the interest rate from the banks that can reach the
Majority,
the small majority with that kind of rate, how do we grow in that kind of with that kind of interest rate? That's number one. Right. And then secondly, okay, let me allow you answer this question because I have another question.
I honestly share your sentiment because when we engage with Nigerians, we hear the same. You know, that it is like the bank operate as though they are alpha and omega. And even though it's a free market economy where we can't control their operations, but then also bank need to do more. Because bank, they don't provide enough facilities. Government can never, someone asked me about job creation, that the president said he would recruit a lot of people before he was made president. And how is it that he's not recruiting a lot of people? I said, no, federal government in an economy that is thriving does not necessarily drive or lead in employment. It is the private sector that will lead. Private sector will bring economic activities that will create jobs. Government is to provide the enabling environment and all the assistance that is needed. In so far as I know, the government policy towards the bank has been so far fantastic. But we get the feedback, just like you said, from the masses, that the bank do not trickle down this to the people. Because lots of people can't even access money for their studies, for their medicals, for purchases. Let's say they are bringing raw materials from abroad for production. And like in this case, even loan to do business. So bank need to do more. And I would take what you're saying as a feedback to government. I know that our respective ministers, I mean, the Minister of the Economy, the Central Bank Governor, every now and then the whole press briefing, you know, about policies of government that create that opportunity for the bank to also trickle down this to the people. Because as a bank, you can't benefit from government and the masses can't access, you know, facilities that are the basis for which you are accessing certain benefit from government.
Sorry, let me add another thing. Sorry, excuse me. Let me add something else again. Then the licenses. Right. For example, licenses for us to, you know, produce business. For example, let me call some agencies like NAFDAC, SON, and all of that. It takes time. And the requirements, are so much, you know, it's a bit doubting. And then most importantly, it takes time. And then once you get your number, let's say you get your NAFDAC number, it will just take by 2 years, it has already expired. You just got the number and you are getting ready to relax, to start selling. Before you know it, 2 years has come. And then there are other licenses that come up every single time. You have, there's tax you pay local government, you pay, you know, FIRs, you pay. There are so many things. So I'm wondering how you want these small businesses to really grow and be able to, you know, recruit to
the environment
is very hostile to the business environment. And you and I will agree that the best way that an economy will move forward
is through these small businesses.
So
there's something Mariah always says, that as the president ensured that the renewed hope agenda trickles and is being implemented by all ministries, all agencies, and all departments, because these kind of things is not, I can't say it's the presidency that is meant to handle SON and NAFDAC, but the flow. How do we ensure it goes down? And I'll add a question to that, because I feel that her question is, she's speaking the heart of the business owner.
Correct.
And you might, it might be part of what you're taking as feedback. However, within the presidency is that we had a minister's shake-up. And we did not know the metrics for the minister shake-up. We have midterm now, and from our analysis as observers of the power play, we feel that some ministers need to go, and some ministers might be encouraged with acknowledgement of their efforts. Some ministers are obviously working. You cannot deny it. You can see the work. And some ministers were using binoculars, were searching and were trying to say, what have you done? So I feel that this midterm, what do you think in analyzing the ministers? What should we be expecting from this administration, and can they be public with the metrics for judging the ministers, because it's very important.
Your point, supporting her point, clearly plays into why the president introduced the KPI for ministers and their departments. Now, key performance indicators. It is like, talk about the indices and the metrics. You can always see the feedback we get. We also develop a feedback mechanism where we call the citizens engagement, right? If the masses listening to us tonight take advantage of this, you go to the website or you access the app where applicable and giving your feedback about the problem you're encountering with implementation of policy. Because what the president does as a visionary is to provide the vision. When he provides the vision, the details of how your mission and the objective is done by ministers and agencies under them. We have, as we go around the country in our various engagements, the other time we had a coffee hangout, we hear the same. When it comes to implementation, there are places where it is tougher, it is harder. We have even had complaint about certain things on the desk of ministers approved by the president, but yet not implemented. You know, the president has a mechanism of getting this information. So, for example, even the key performance indicators, which goes on with the office of the policy coordinator, my sister Hadiza. He has his own independent way, because when he introduced that, he also introduced external assessors. So that even after she has done her work, there are assessors who also bring their perspective, but the president's ears are on the ground. So whether someone is performing or not, at every given time he exercises his discretion, whether he returns or he sacks. And when it comes to relieving ministers or any appointee of job, there are three factors. One, it might be non-performance. Two, it might be a strategic thing, that change. You know, you're doing well, but strategically you need to be reallocated or you need to be withdrawn for someone because there's a change of strategy. And the third one is what we call at the pleasure of the president. You can still be doing well and he'll say thank you for your service. Because
can they even remove somebody from one ministry to another, for instance? This is trouble. I'm looking for trouble. Because we didn't think that, immigration and passport business can be over us until Olubumitu Jojo came in with tech and all of that and was innovative at it. Can we take him to power? Let's go and try. If he can solve,
or take him to customs since he did well in immigration.
Leave. As in, can we try?
Do you have a problem with power?
We have a problem.
We all have a problem.
All of us have a problem with.
But I want to ask a question on something that is so critical, because if we have a thriving economy and we have insecurity, then we have nothing. And we see what's going on in terms of insecurity as it affects agriculture, as it affects the common man, the farmers. How they can't do anything.
Even tourism can't thrive because of insecurity.
So what's the government doing about that? Because, like she said, without a secured environment, investors can come in, tourists can work, farmers and food, we can't have food. People can't even use the roads. What exactly are we doing?
Right. So thank you for the question on security. This is an area that we talk about it every day. Yet it is difficult for people to see so much that the government has done in that.
We have people now back on our land.
Yes, I'll give you perspective. So that's why we created the forest guards. And we just started. Even in the sea, we have the coastal guard.
The forest guards was announced just this month.
That's what I'm saying. It's part of the what can you do. So you are now saying you have seen, we announced it recently. So that means we're doing something about it. Then with the interagency collaboration is also part of what we're promoting, because for every insecurity in a locality, there are lots of factors. Maybe the one that has to do with intelligence, which is SSS, the one that has to do with law enforcement and management, which is the police system, and if it is of a nature that threatens the territorial integrity, then the army component will come into it. I can tell you this. You must have been reporting every day, President seeing service chiefs, giving marching orders. Everywhere he goes to in this country, whether to come to your state and commission a project, one of his conditions for coming is that he will address the armed forces in your state. This is insecurity, or security is the heartbeat of the president, because everything rises and falls on a secure environment. No business if there is no secure environment.
Honorable Bwala, how is it in your state, Borno? Right now, because the governor of Borno is going around and crying out for help in his state.
But recently,
because you now have communities taken over by Boko Haram again. Something that has become a thing of the past.
There are three elements. But let me say that he recently, I think about 5 days ago, commended the president for taking decisive step in that regard. But I will tell you that because that's my state. And part of what the governor himself said, these guys were called repentant Boko Harams. That were carried and trained in time, rehabilitate them, then train them in the hope that we will use them against the insurgents. Some of them were armed. They ran to the bush
and joined back.
And they use our arms against us. This is not whether the president has policy or not. It can happen anywhere. So we are devising a way of countering that. There is two. The second one, when political season comes, some politicians are heartless. And you won't believe it. anything that will undermine the government, including bringing Nigeria down, if it serves their purpose, they will either aid or abate it. And that is the secondary aspect of what you see in the Northeast and the Northwest in particular.
Yeah, it's counting down to 2027.
Counting that 2027. And then the third one is that we have what we call crisis economy.
Yeah.
People do it for business. We create problem, we get paid, we are given paid to manage the problem, and we are paid also to ensure that the problem ends. And just like when it happened with these people from Russia, they call these soldiers you bring in mercenaries. They say for every city they go to, they will end the immediate problem and create another one.
Yes,
because they have to stay in the job. So whether banditry, kidnapping, insurgency, so that crisis economy has also added. So we have 3 layers. The good thing that I will report to Nigerians is that we are making the necessary progress and we're reporting that to the Nigerian people.
All right, let me take this call. Mr. Yakub, it's been a long time. Welcome to the show. Are you still there?
Yeah, thank you. I'm there. Good morning, Mahadeji.
Good morning.
And good morning, Mr. Bwala, and then the rest team in the studio. Sister Anima, good morning. Sister Tokwe, I think, please give me a little bit, some minutes, because I have to deal with some certain issues, especially 2 issues. One is about the CNG. The second one is about NEPA stuff. Because, Mr. Bwala, I'm very happy when we won you back to the where you belong to. Because initially, when we lost you to the other party, I was afraid. Yes, I'm not a politician, but I have a very sympathy to this government because of in person of Bola Tinubu. Now, I'm very sure anything I said today, you get it to Mr. President, because this is the only channel we have to clear our mind. Number one, the CNG issues. Yes, the government have done very well. They have done very, very well. But Mr. Bwala, I need to call your attention to this. We need to ask ourselves this question. How much is this conversions? Because I got to know that to convert 4 plug of car, if you took to 1.250, 1,250,000.
It's very expensive, yes, sir.
So the fees you took to 1,650,000 to convert. See, Mr. Bwala, Mr. President done well, but he needs to look into this. It is not only for the yellow buses alone. Oh, what of us that have a private car? Are we not a Nigerian? We are Nigerians as well. Because I go to filling station, I needed to buy a gas, but I couldn't because I cannot afford to convert my car to CNG because the money is so exorbitant. Who they put in charge of that vehicle? How much is this key? Why is this so cost? That's number one. Number two, even those buses that we already contracted, Mr. Bwala, do you know those guys are still carry the same amount, the ones that have not yet contracted, even in our Dokwemu area here. If you want to take a Marwa from Dokwemu here to Ikeja, normally they took 400 naira, and then you will see other Marwa that have already converted to CNG. They still took the 400 naira. Look at that. Even though I believe that we are doing ourselves, because it is not Mr. President that the Nigerian citizens that already converted their Marwa to still collect the same amount that they were collected before they turned their Marwa to CNG. That is aside. Now, you say that everybody has issue with NEPA. Yes, we did. In fact, all people sitting down in that studio, they have issue, including me. Yes.
Yes.
Some of us bought a meter, Mr. Bwala. Please pass this thing to Mr. President. Even though I don't like the face of Minister of Power, because he has not done anything to my own best of knowledge. That's it. Because some of us, we bought a meter. And then they were telling us this meter is old. And then they took it away. They are not telling us to go and buy another one. Who does that? Who does that? Nigeria are crying loud. Please, let Mr. President know this. Thank you and God bless you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Yakub.
Take it back.
This is actually what we welcome. Mr. President has been very forward about that. You know, we call it citizens engagement. You are not governing if the people are not reacting.
Yeah.
We take feedback, whether it is negative or positive. In his own case, all of them are positive because you can see from he appreciates the effort of government, but then there are challenges he's pointing out with respect to implementation. It's not far from what you said, and you even mentioned about difficulty, you know, dealing with NAFDAC. These are the details of what the president doesn't naturally or necessarily do. He appoints people for that purpose. It is also fair, I think it will be fair, to also sometimes, before we make a conclusion of an item, to know what effort these individuals are doing. Like, for example, when he talked about people also charging for the amount of non-CNG, even on CNG, it's also not government. It's just that when we provided rice to people, they hoarded it to be able to sell it.
No, but you know that the CNG converter kit was provided free for a lot of commercial buses.
Buses.
And when you now identify that the commercial bus that got the kit for free is charging the same thing like the one that is not running on gas, the one running on petrol. Obviously, some people are taking advantage of the opportunity they've been given, which is a personal factor, but it has to be checked.
So how you check it is that I'm sure that transport workers, they have an association.
Yeah.
So when you escalate that to the association level, the people will look into the merit of the case. When they come up with a finding that is infraction, they will at their level start the process of probably providing the punishment or addressing it. Where it is linked to a government official, we come in. Okay. But if it is at a private level, private sector level, president can't come to the to the bus station and solve a bus station problem. But if there is an infraction probably relating to corruption, people overcharging or extorting people, we're happy to take that feedback because it will be looked into. So we do not get a word from TV and then form a judgment. Okay. You have to also hear the version of that individual. But I must thank the fellow who made the point. It is very valid point. It's very valid point.
Okay, so another question I wanted to ask is this concerning checks and balances of our governors. We can see that the president is really disbursing funds to all the governors.
Yes, so
and we know that these governors are the ones that are going to reach the grassroots people. Yeah. Because me personally, since you said that the government is working on everything, but there are more people who are now poor because there's no more low class. It's the middle class and then the high class. The low class, they don't exist. Because personally, the amount of people that have been asking me for money, it's different from what I've been getting before from the previous administration. Because the previous administration, they're able to buy food, they can eat and all. But this administration, it's clear that they have difficulty in buying food. Now, what are the checks and balances that the president is going to make or is supposed to make on these governors to ensure that the money that has been disbursed to them, that they are using it to develop their states? Right. We can see some states, they are doing very well. The governors are doing very well. What about the states that the governors are not doing well?
Yeah. So
before you answer that, let me take Engineer Kunayo, called in from Ikorodu. Welcome to the show. Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning, Tokwe and the crew. Two questions for Mr. Bwala, or Honorable Bwala. Now, recently, about 2 weeks ago, we learned that they are doing some investigations as to our refineries. I mean, the top management staff, they are going around and so on. I want a definitive stand of the government on why they have to do a rehabilitation on, especially Port Harcourt Refinery that has just been repaired and put on stream. That is number one. Then number two, about PHCN, which Uncle Yakub talked about a short while ago. I want to ask a confirmation from Mr. Bwala, because 2 weeks ago too, a statement was credited to the president saying that the privatization of NEPA has failed. And even senator from Edo State, he did say that something is likely to happen, especially with the discourse. What is the position of the government on these two issues? Thank you.
So I will start with the last one. I think that the Minister of Power in the last ministerial briefing, he addressed Nigerians extensively on the doings in his government, his activities in government, and two, the challenges that we have with discourse. And so it is quite comprehensive. Because of the limitation of time here, I will refer my friend to look up to what the minister said. There are quite a number. And you see, the government is to provide environment and structures. But then there are private sector players in this thing. The problem of the private sector cannot be the problem of government, but where the private sector should change it, the Nigerian people, the government will have to come into play. With respect to infraction in government, when they use the word investigation, because he talked about investigation in relation to the NNPC, investigation does not necessarily have a timeline. Until you find the raw material that you need to form the judgment. However, in some cases, the president can say, I give 2 weeks to get a preliminary finding. So even if it is not a conclusive finding, a preliminary finding to have a headway with respect to that. And the government is doing what it is doing in that regard. You talked about the checks and balances, but then you also mentioned the middle class. Some people argue that it is actually the middle class that is eradicated, that is wiped out, that it is either the poor and the rich, but there is no middle class where you have workers, SMEs and all that, which is why you see enormous investment of government in that field. With checks and balance between the federal government and the governors, your point is very clear. President Bola Tinubu, what he did when he came is to say, I am a collaborator. You know, we used to have in this country where the president doesn't like a governor, they will remove him. But that's not democratic. And sometimes the feeling is, that's where you have separation of power. You will see something, but you're incapacitated because they are not commissioners and they are not ministers. They are also presidents in their place. But I know that Central Bank, Attorney General, and the states have had a meeting after the judgment of the Supreme Court on local government autonomy. They arrived at a finding on how the money will go directly to the local government chairman. Because the complaints we have is that these same monies, when they go to those states, they are still routed through the governors. So the local government chairman still cannot access the money to do what the judgment of the court inferred. So that is also what you will look into. And the president has been engaging with governors. Every now and then he meets with them and he urges them to also deliver on the same. But we are built, I was on one television, I indict them, I'll see indict the media here. Not necessarily the station, but generally the media. Governors get passed a lot of time from the media. Yeah. And the reason, in my judgment, because before coming into government, I have been a player in the media as well. Because the states majorly are the prime customers of media houses. So whenever conversation come on holding governors to account, it doesn't last in the media. They will talk it one day and then it's gone. That is where the government is. You need to look at how much is going to a state because of this local government autonomy and the increased allocation to appreciate what we're talking about when we talk of investment in that regard.
We'll take a quick break now. When we return, we'll talk about hunger. Because, you know, you made it sound like between last year and this year, people are not saying living power again. It's not true. You are not keeping your ears to the ground. People are still complaining of hunger. We'll talk more about it when we return from the break. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your view will be right back.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. We still have with us Honorable Bwala and we're discussing mid-term review of the president's administration. I think he's also drawing our attention to the fact that it's not just the presidency. A lot of governors are also in their mid-term. But Amaka had a question before we went to the break.
Yes, so sorry. So for you to have a country, you need to have people to govern. And if people are sick and people die, then there's no country and there's no person to govern. So what's going on within the medical sector where we don't really have medical facilities? In 2025, we still have women dying from childbirth. The rate is still mortality rate is very high. We don't have first responders when it comes to accidents or anything happening. It's so stressful. People just die out of negligence, so there's no reason for that person to even die. When it comes to the local level, like even the villages and
riverine areas,
they don't have medical facilities. Then even the cities where you have medical facilities, we don't have doctors, we don't have nurses, everybody has jabad. What exactly has it? How we go? The prayer now is just don't fall sick. Pray to God not to fall sick because you don't know what next.
So I know someone that lost a driver, and I've mentioned it on the show about 2 weeks ago, and it was strictly because they couldn't get quick medical care. That was the reason the person died. Yes,
and also, sadly enough, most of the pharmaceutical companies are not even stocking up certain medications.
Yes,
because you can be going through something. I am an example. I'm going through something, and I don't even have access to the drugs that I need and is life-threatening. So if there's a crisis, I don't even if I go to the best hospital, they don't even have the medication for me. So what happens to people? What happens to us as a country?
I can tell you this. One, the population of Nigeria, and you rank it in pari passu with medical infrastructure in Nigeria, suggests that we need a little more time to come to the point where we can compare Nigeria with an environment where there is easy access to healthcare. But I will tell you this. I know that the Minister of Health, if it was not yesterday, 2 days ago or so, he railed out the government policy that has impacted the Nigerian people as far as healthcare is concerned. In fact, I think I heard close to 10 million Nigerians are able to access what you call health insurance.
Primary health care centers have
Primary
improved.
health, yes, and healthcare insurance. So there is a progress. But just like I told you when I began about the limited resources we have and what we're expected to do only in infrastructure, you will know that the growth in every sphere cannot be sporadic. It has to take time. Our job is to keep communicating to the Nigerian people, but also encourage private sector investment in healthcare, because because the private sector is profit oriented. So the
cities are covered.
Yes, cities are covered. There are other aspects of our economy. You have more than enough investors in that thing. But in healthcare, people haven't looked into that. But government has a program to encourage that. You can imagine if in a place, because when you are in Lagos, you are like you are in heaven. Largest state in terms of economy in Africa. In fact, Lagos is a country, if you talk of Nigeria and investment. But there are other parts of Nigeria where what you're talking about is even worse there. We need investors in that field. That's why government is promoting private sector. Government can't do everything, but government must provide environment. Government must encourage people to invest. That's our primary duty. Make it attractive and get people to invest. With respect to pharmaceuticals, I think it's a global thing. I overheard the other time I was watching, I think it was BBC or something, somebody made similar complaint in the United Kingdom of certain drugs that the person could not access until it took the person number of days and the patient sadly passed before that medication came. So some of these unfortunate situations are here, there, and there. But we know as Nigerians, the area where we need to affect our people fundamentally, like this maternal childbirth. If you know what this government has done in providing the health care that the mother needs to have cesarean section or whatever it is, there are many other areas that the government is actually intervening.
Because the rural areas, even in the Lagos that we are saying is so huge, it is within the cities. Once you go into the river, once you cross a river, there are no hospitals functioning there. But let me take this caller. Welcome to the show. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
You are live.
Yes. Good morning to the Honorable and all the crews there. I just want to say I give kudos to the President. He is doing fine. You know, with his agenda, he is doing good. You understand? The Yorubas will say, he's trying. I do pray for him every day, that God will continue to help him and support him. He will not fail. He's doing his best.
If he fails, we are suffering.
He's a good Baba, as I do call him. So let us, praise him at least. He's trying. Things have changed. If, we will say the truth. It's just that, politicians will not want to say the truth. But, you people should know that the Baba is trying. God will continue to help him and uphold him in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you so much.
Let me say something before you say a question about what she said. In your opening monologue, you also state what she's saying. There are two sides to it. So sometimes when we're doing the review, maybe we've turned the other side of the coin, which is about things not working. But if we turn because people don't want to hear the flip side of what is working, the assumption is that government should never be praised. So that's why even attempting to say we have achieved something, some people see it as crime. They will say, are you not supposed to do it? But if we have not achieved it, you are supposed to do it. We recognize that, and we are not in any way, we don't have an apathy or hatred for people whose feedback towards government is criticism. It's all part of government. We as politicians know how to separate between media-based criticism of government and that which can be fact-checked or that which people will have understanding. So I want to thank her for at least talking to us on the other side of the coin.
Exactly, we're grateful. Because we heard that the president was able to help us clear. Is it the World Bank or the IMF?
The IMF.
The IMF loan.
Okay.
But then
you want to now borrow another batch.
They brought a proposal.
I hope you know that even with respect to the cesarean section, it is free in Nigeria. So what we are talking is that there are other places that's not gone.
It's not free in Nigeria.
Not free. You are talking to women.
We are women, no. We have plenty pregnant.
All of us are paid for
somebody that has had.
So there is a policy of government that it is free.
But no, sir. In Lagos State General Hospital, it's over 100,000 naira.
That's why you say it's not 100.
And you even have
over
and all of those things.
Okay,
it's over.
I still had to pay for a relative on cesarean session and general hospital.
So that's what we say. Something is policy and the reality is a great difference.
So
I'm glad with this feedback.
So we would like to know where to go. But I wanted to talk about this, our loan that was cleared and the new proposal, for an approval of a $21 billion loan. Yes, and that has brought a lot of criticism. So it's like we won one and we are trying to lose more. I was thinking that since our revenue increased because of the removal of subsidy, it will mean that we will not borrow again because we will be able to manage. But now they have to now give all these governors we cannot draw their neck. More revenue.
More money.
So how does this work? How do you respond to the criticism of the new proposal to be indebted?
Okay. But yes, I'll answer her, but let me relate to the question you talk about certain drugs. There's a policy of government that subsidizes on certain drugs.
That one we've seen.
I'll come back to you if you need more with time on specific aspects of
malaria drugs in the hospitals are free.
Subsidized.
Antenatal drugs in the hospitals free.
Yeah.
For adults,
even some of the life-threatening
pregnant women
or some of the life-threatening ailments, the medication that is required, especially those medication that is lifelong, that have subsidies of government in that regard. So talk more on that. Yeah. Okay. With respect to the loan you talked about, when it was first announced, there were some journalists whose wish is that Nigeria doesn't make progress. They went to towns and said that the government has already applied to borrow. Meanwhile, the request of the president is in plain language. The simple fact of the issue. No, it doesn't, but not to the value that it is said. What you are saying is just like a budget, estimates, and expenditure. So this is the much that government at all levels can borrow. Our defense for that is because we have been able to measure based on debt servicing and offsetting paying of some of these debt and our increased revenue that we can match this loan that we're asking. But it doesn't mean the federal government is going to borrow necessarily that amount. And then two, if in the event that in the future the federal government borrow that amount, is saying that we have been able to put the economy in a structure where we can defend it, we can recover that. So it is not a suggestion that the federal government has gone borrowing on that. Borrowing generally is part of business. People hate to hear it. No nation of the world that doesn't collect loan. America collects loan, China, everybody collects loan. It is what you make of the loan that you collect.
Yeah, we have
so this brings us to corruption. I want us to talk about corruption because so far, do you think that all the policies you guys have concerning corruption, has it worked? Because so far I've not seen anybody who has done corruption, has been charged. It takes long.
Emefiele is standing trial. There are people every now and then you see FCC.
Can it be fast? Can it be fast? Because so that because when you reprimand, it will stop others who have intentions of.
But that's doing not up to like. I get your point, valid, but not up to the government because once you push something to the judicial process, it takes the administration of justice.
Because you have just 1 more minute for final words, I'd like you to let, because you've said something very powerful, which is feedback. A lot of times we complain, but the government is not hearing our complaint because we're not telling them in the way through the mechanism provided. Do you have the details of how the instruments already available to submit complaints?
Yes, so my sister Adizabala announced to the Nigerian people a long time ago, if you log on to the website on the particular assignment she's handling, which is policy and coordination. If you Google policy and coordination,
Nigeria.
You go through the link, you will see the website where necessary. Any information that is useful to you, whether it is reporting, whether it is accessing information, you can take advantage of that. And then it is also simplified into app, so that instead of necessarily going to the website, if you have the app on your phone or anywhere, you can then use it. But then we also have sensitization that we do through radio, through TV, because everybody is not on the internet. Everybody doesn't have a mobile device. So all of these platforms are created. Even this television interview we're doing is one of the ways of sensitizing Nigeria and getting from the Nigerian people feedback.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. It was great having you, Honorable Daniel Bwala, the Special Advisor to the President on Policy and Communications. He's taking some of the feedback, and now we have means to give even more feedback to the government. We want the government to win, because if the government does well, we are the beneficiaries. So I always say you don't want to curse a place where you are getting you are living. You don't want to curse the government that is feeding you and administering your life. So definitely keep praying for the government to succeed. That's all we can take on the show today. Tomorrow there will be Your View Pidgin, but we, the ladies on the weekday, will be back next week, Monday. Bye for now.